Hi everyone. Hello, another day, another webinar, another Friday. I think this has been 2 months of this. Oh, how mad. Could everybody who's not a speaker put yourself on mute, because that really helps. Thank you. And thanks to everyone for coming, and also thanks to Sarah for coordinating and to Kate for helping us to reach out to some of the manufacturers in the UK. I also think that there might be a couple of our speakers who are using different names. If you are, could you either email admin or could you wave, one or the other? I've just found the wave facility on a Zoom call because I had a parliamentary meeting that I ended up hosting yesterday, and that was interesting. So everybody, if Simon and Hareesh are here, can they make themselves known to us? Otherwise, if Kate and Sarah could reach out to them, that would be really great. Oh, Hareesh is coming in. I see Hareesh. We have Hareesh in the waiting room. I'm going to admit him now. Hi, Hareesh. And then Simon will try to find. Kiran, could you just introduce yourself while we're waiting for Simon and Hareesh to get themselves ready? And
yes,
who you are and what your company is. Thank you.
I'm Kiran Shergill, and I'm the Operations Director at So-Mes Creation in Leicester. We are a clothing manufacturer, and my parents set up this business over 25 years ago. So predominantly it has been ladies wear fashion, but then we've also been producing menswear and a little bit of children's wear. But with what's going on now, we have no fashion orders at the moment.
And what can I just ask, back touching on that lightly, what happened with the orders that you had in? Did you find that you had manufacturers who met their obligations, or have you had difficulties with that? I know it's been an issue that we've heard a lot about overseas, but I'm aware it's also been happening here.
It has. We were fortunate enough with our largest orders that had been sent out, but unfortunately there's been about 4 medium-sized orders which did get cancelled. So we've got fabric sitting on our floor now, of which is just cancelled. So what we did get from our clients was that whether we were able to produce them within the lockdown situation, and because it had just become completely shut down, we gave them the timescale that it would be produced in, and then we were
Fiona, you need to mute yourself, babe. Fiona. Yeah. Fiona and other people who aren't speaking, if you could just mute. Sorry, yeah, we're all learning these skills. Everyone, I can see, I think someone's driving. If you could just mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, back to Kiran.
Yes, so we did. We've got some handful of cancelled orders with fabric sitting on our floor. Fortunate enough that those fabrics haven't been cut. Okay. And it is material that we use on a regular basis. So all we should be able to use those. So I think we've been lucky in that.
So in the long term, you're not looking at a loss because you've got the fabric. They could be repeated into other.
All being well, yes. Once they start picking up our emails, that is.
And it was something that was brought up in the Ethics and Sustainability and Fashion All-Party Parliamentary Group meeting that we had virtually yesterday. One of the MP members asked whether it's a possibility that we could ask brands to stop looking at seasonal orders when we've got stock that's literally been sitting with Easter bonnets in the windows and in the shops of so many of our high street retailers up and down the country. Do you think that that might be, or do you feel that the online shopping means that people will try to go back to this seasonal multi-drops with your orders?
For the last 5 years, well, even more actually, between the last 5 to 10 years, the seasonality of buying should have stopped a long time ago.
Yeah.
Just from a UK point of view, with our weather, we know all of the whole summer range begins to go into predominantly the sale time begins end of May, beginning of June.
Yeah, it's not.
Whereas our peak is August onwards, and we could be potentially getting a lot more sales with it at full price.
Yeah.
So buyers do need to change that, and unfortunately it still does seem to be the old textbook way of doing it. Season 1 to 4, this is what we're going to be purchasing in it. And I know through social media, I have been seeing that a lot of this is being spoken about, and absolutely. And even with the sales beginning in a month's time, should they begin? Should they not?
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think they should. I think we should be able to continue with it and do a sale at a later time in the year. Okay. Once our summer season period is sort of.
I mean, to me, the summer in particular, I feel we notice it more because we're still working, our kids are still at school, and things are going on sale, and we're not going on holiday until late July if we've got kids, or August. Yes. So we know in summer we're going to pick up a bargain. So that's either costed into the first price to then drop down to retail at sale, which is therefore the real price. So it's all, but it's escalated it. Whereas when I was a kid, it went on sale in August and you knew where you were with the system, and it also went on sale in Boxing Day and after, so you knew where you were, not in November when you were going to buy your Christmas presents. So again, it doesn't seem very logical. I know we've got a couple of questions, but I also just wanted to introduce, if that's okay, Simon and Hareesh. Are they there if they'd like to introduce themselves, to put their video on so that people can see them? Hello. If not, hey.
Yeah,
hi.
I can start if that's okay. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Hareesh. Would you like to introduce who you are and your company to our audience?
Yeah, I think we'll start with Simon. Simon said hello. So Simon, if you want to go first, and then
I can't keep up with all this.
Okay.
Okay.
Simon, after you.
All right.
Thanks, Hareesh.
Hi, Simon.
So I look after Johnstons of Elgin, which is a large UK textile manufacturer, as large as we have these days. We've got about 1,000 people. Mostly on furlough at the moment, but we sell into the luxury sector.
Yeah, I think I spoke to you with when we were launching the Textiles and Fashion All-Party Parliamentary Group, or someone from the team.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Meetings around trade with China, because you were exporting, and one of the key brands that the UK policy leaders saw as a kind of exciting highlight showcase of British manufacturing actually being exported. I'm right in remembering that. Was it you or it was someone else from the team? I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I think it was me. Yeah.
Right. And how are things going with everybody being furloughed? Are you looking to try to go back very soon, or what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, we've got some operations going at the moment, but obviously we're under a slightly different rule structure in Scotland than you are in the rest of the UK. So probably a little bit slower.
You're not alert. You're
but yeah, we're looking at, obviously we're not alert. We're still staying home. So this is my home. So we're gradually ramping up, but obviously demand is very low as well. So with shops being closed, everyone is looking at their order book and seeing what they're going to need. So it's a little bit uncertain at the moment, but clearly it's going to be a very difficult year for manufacturers.
And what are your export opportunities looking like, given the fact that you were someone that I was talking to about China? Obviously the Chinese market being more challenging than it has been, but also other markets that you export to.
Well, China's doing bizarrely well at the moment, so we're actually ahead of prior year in China. It's the only market that we can say that for.
Interesting.
Obviously, when they've come back, certain parts of the Chinese economy have started up really well, other ones a little bit more slowly. America is extremely slow, but it has started to improve online. Europe as a whole, significantly down. So overall, we think that the overall industry in our kind of sector is probably going to be around about 40% down this year.
Okay, that's very challenging. I want to come back to the onshoring conversation, which is something I'm very passionate and I share Kate's interest in. But I'm just going to quickly introduce Hareesh, if that's okay. Thank you, Simon, and then we'll come back to the questions that have been sent in. Hareesh, over to you on your sofa.
Yeah, afternoon everyone. I've just come back from work, so my daughter is in the other room, kind of doing her school work. So hi, I'm Hareesh. I'm the director of production at Church's English Shoes. I was at Burberry prior to this, supporting manufacturing in the supply chain, and it's been 5 months since I've been in this new role. So at Church's English Shoes, we are part of the Prada group. We're fully owned by Prada, and we employ somewhere in the region of 500 people in the UK.
Okay.
And we also have got another 300 people in the retail side across the rest of the world.
So you're one of the, Churches is one of the exemplars of the British shoe industry coming out of the UK, that for me, like Trickers and these other heritage brands, really represent that sense of the British gentleman. And it's always going to have a resonance, I think, with the market because it's a classic. How have the fact that it's a classic in a way, do you think that helps with these kinds of sudden shocks like the pandemic?
So I think I've got to kind of take your question back a couple of steps. So prior to the pandemic, we were doing a lot of analysis on inventory.
Right.
So as a business, we've not been very lean. So we're looking at our stocks because we are seen as a heritage brand with continuity styles. The stock holding that we have in our supply chain on the retail side is about 28 months worth of stock.
Okay.
Which is kind of shocking, and we wanted to bring that down below the pandemic. So we've been towards that. And since this has happened, so for the last, let's say, 2.5, 3 months, we've not moved stock at all. So all our stores around the world have been closed. And as Simon said, China and the Far East have started to open. Our figures for China are actually better than where we were the previous, same month, previous year. Our numbers are better. But we're struggling across the rest of the world. So as of now, including our warehouse retail, we are doing about 150 pairs a week. We would have been otherwise doing somewhere in the region of 3,500 to 4,000 pairs per week in terms of our total sales. So that again, it's fractional of where it should be. So all of our production people are furloughed at the minute, and we had announced to start the factory back on the 1st of June. But since the new guidelines have come out earlier this week, we have gone through the multi-page document, and we believe now we're going to delay opening the factory fully. We're going to do it in phases where we start to bring people in smaller batches because we've got the spring, summer 21 sampling and development that's due now. So we made the test shoes. So as soon as we are back, we are going to focus on the sampling side first, and then we'll start to look at the autumn-winter production. The minute all our production is, should I say, ready to go for the autumn-winter production, and at the minute we are delaying it.
I mean, the fact that you've got so much stock in it would lead, I mean, I'm no lean expert, and I have spoken to other people who know way more about that. That was never my side of the sector. I worked as an editor and stylist for 20 years, but it would be intuitive to me to understand what, because I know that you've done women's brands, and were you looking to diversify what you've got into try to shift it, or are you just trying to look to shift that stock somehow? Or
okay. So one, the stock that I've shared with you that we have for the 28 months is a combination of heritage, men's footwear. We also do women's footwear. We also do trainers and what we would call lifestyle footwear. So it's a combination of all the 4 categories. As of today, predominantly most of the women's footwear, the trainers and lifestyle footwear is made by Prada in Italy for us, and it's branded as Churches. We've been working on a strategy since January this year of how we can bring all of those products back into the UK. Until now, the limiting factor for us has been our space and capacity. And one of the first things that we've started to look at is, why are we not lean on the shop floor? So we've started to free up space on the shop floor by taking out redundant machinery, redundant stock, and starting to look at our flow. And this has started to free up a lot of space for us. So what we're now going to do is set up lines for trainers and women's footwear and also accessories. So over this period, we've been looking at all our leather waste, and we've developed a range of accessories now. So we're going to initially launch the leather accessories made in the UK. And then we also want to then make all the accessories that are made by Prada in Italy for us, like the belts.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that way, as we come back, volumes are going to be down, sales are going to be down. So
but you can keep the customer in different ways, because once you've got them in for the shoes, you might also get them for the belt. You might also get them for the wallet or the handbag or the the briefcase, so that it becomes a 360 when they're having the experience, because people buy into the brand, that heritage, in the same way they do with Johnstons of Elgin. So I think it makes complete sense to keep them, once they're engaged, to remain engaged but also loyal, because it's I think what we've been looking at Fashion Roundtable is, I know it's a catchphrase, and I'm sure actually within a month we're all going to be sick of it, but we're working around the new normal because we're stuck in our houses. This is, I think, our 8th webinar that we've done through lockdown on different issues pertaining to the industry. And what we're seeing is that people are building up relationships, or feeling those relationships, you know, and possibly that's why sales have been up in China, is that your pre-existing customer feels a loyalty, and after being stuck at home now wants to buy into something that they're emotionally engaged with. I think this emotional engagement with product is going to be really important on the way out. I just want to bring in Kate, if that's okay. Kate, coming. Kate. And then I know we had some questions, and the first one was for Kate, but if you could just introduce yourself, Kate, that would be amazing. And then I know there's a few questions for all of us.
Okay, so Kate Hills, founder of Make It British, which has been going for 10 years now, previously a fashion buyer, and also have my own factory, and I'm on a one-woman mission to bring manufacturing back to the UK. And I'm very excited.
You have allies on that one-woman mission, Kate. You're not alone.
And I'm very excited about Hareesh's women's churches range finally coming back to the UK. Right, I want the first pair off the production line, Hareesh. That's great to hear, because actually there's so few women's shoes made here compared to men's, so that is music to my ears. Yeah,
to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but in the luxury market, the only women's luxury shoe that I know being made here is Gina in Tottenham. And years ago, because I know them quite well, I was like, why aren't you making...
Oh, we've lost you, Tamara. Oh, what? Shall I fill in for Tamara? While she's sorting her microphone out, is it me? I can't hear Tamara.
No, we can't hear her.
While she's getting her microphone sorted out, I will say on women's shoes, there is obviously Gina. There's a few made in Northampton.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you, but Kate's on mute now.
All right. It's another. Oh yeah, Grenson. Good point. Other luxury
makers don't make their uppers in the UK, so
did they do that one stitch make in the UK situation?
Jones make their women's in the UK, but they're very narrow fit for me. Apparently, the owner of the business's wife has very narrow feet, so that's why. Anyway, that's another story.
We had a question from somebody, and it does relate to you, Kate. I design and make women's wear. If I am operating on a made-to-order basis, how best do I approach a factory? Would I still want them to make a sample for costing and make, but I won't be placing production? Thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
It's good. How do you approach a factory? Well, Kiran should also answer this, but firstly, I would say, how should you approach a factory? Very nicely, and treating them right from the start as a partnership.
Yeah, so it's building relationships.
Yeah, so if you are thinking of just sampling with them and then buggering off again, that may not be seen as a long-term partnership. So in that instance, I always say there are some factories that will almost specialise, like sample makers, especially if you're a small business just starting out, who will just specialise in making your sample for you, and they know that's the relationship, and they charge you accordingly, and that's all they need to do. It's really unfair to approach factories, ask them to sample for you just to get a price and then not give them the production, because actually manufacturers invest a lot of time in sample making. It's a really costly thing to do. Quite often they don't even cover their costs for the sampling, but they're doing it with a view to getting long-term business from you.
Thank you. Yes, it does. Kiran, what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, like Kate had said, any new startup company who does approaches, and I must say we're getting at least 10 to 15 inquiries a week at the moment.
Okay, that's good.
Yes, so from a starting up point of view, it is. We provide free consultancy as a small manufacturer. So as soon as that email or telephone call comes through, they are getting free advice from us. So like Kate has said, we are looking at a long-term relationship. So if it is just sampling, a manufacturer isn't quite the right place to be coming to. But if they know, and initially, if they've got the investment, that's the main thing. Lots of people think they can design a pair of shoes or design a tracksuit or whatever it is, but it's actually having the investment behind them. And the companies that have, we've seen them grow. We've seen a lot of companies grow who came into us with a few samples, a range collection of 3 or 4 pieces, between 10 to 30 units, and they've grown it to a few hundred units now. So it does work, but it is hard work. They have to put the effort in. And us as a manufacturer, providing that loyalty and service that we're doing with it as well.
Brilliant. That's a great answer from both of you. Thank you. The second question's going to be really interesting. Okay. Oh dear. The second question. Why did the government not procure PPE from British makers in the same way war requisitioning was done to produce emergency supplies? We've covered this a lot on Fashion Roundtable because obviously we've been working with Kate a lot in a lot of conversations with the government across various departments, and also with the Emergency Designer Network, who we gave lots of support and advice to begin with. In a kind of guarded way, Kate, I'll start with you because I know Kiran and I also had a conversation. Hareesh and Simon, just quickly, have you been working on PPE in your factories at all, or is it a yes or a no, or no? No. Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing some things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Tamara, yes, we have. Yeah.
Yeah. And have you been?
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear me? Please don't say I'm deaf again. Can you? God, I can't bear with this.
I can hear you, but it's coming and going.
Okay. I'll stay like this. Do you feel that I'm just really nervous that my husband will come in an inopportune moment and make loads of noise? That's why I have the headset on. Do you? How easy was it for you to get engaged, Simon? Before I go to Kate on this.
Yeah, we gave up on selling scrubs to the NHS. It wasn't going to work. It was taking too long. So we've made a small quantity and we've donated them to local healthcare centres, etc. Most of our production is not suitable for that type of setup, but we've got a part of our production that is. Okay,
thank you, Kate. Obviously, you voluntarily and pro bono, like us at Fashion Roundtable, did a lot of work on this over the last X amount of months. I think it's been 2 months, over 2 months now for me, certainly. And you set up the British Textile Consortium to bring together all the manufacturers so that there was a joined up thinking and network. Why do you think, and I have my own ideas about this, but why do you think that it hasn't gone as smoothly as perhaps it did under Churchill in World War II?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say thank you for any manufacturer who has been making stuff over the last, because it really is a case of, despite the fact that they've not heard from government, they've been getting on and doing things, and so many manufacturers have done that. You know, they've made scrubs, they've made gowns, they've made masks. Everyone has been doing it as a charity, which is just brilliant.
Yeah, it's heartwarming.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I've got to be careful what I say, and I'm a bit of a loose cannon when I open my mouth, apparently. But I think the biggest issue is that our government cannot get their head round the fact that the UK textile industry is made up of lots of micro to small businesses. I mean, Simon is probably one of the biggest. You're the biggest textile employer in the UK, aren't you, Simon? But even that is small compared to the other, you know, the companies they deal with in other industries. And this is the biggest issue. I don't know how we solve that. Do you got any ideas, Simon? How many people is it you employ, Simon? Hundreds, isn't it?
We've got 1,000, but I was on a call the other day with somebody in the US who normally makes t-shirts, and they're making cotton masks at the moment, and they're doing 1 million a week. So it just gives you an idea of the size that's out there, and that's a US manufacturer. That's not one of the big ones based over in Bangladesh or China.
How many? I mean, you did some numbers, didn't you, Kate, of how much, if things were done fluidly, how much production could be made here in the UK?
The manufacturers that have got in touch who would be kind of willing and suitable to make for the long term and to be paid for it, I estimate, well, not estimate, but the figures tell me we could make at least 750,000 units of gowns a week. Okay. Just on those people that have stepped forward and said, yes, we'd like to help.
And what is the need?
What is it? I haven't managed to get to the bottom of that figure. I don't think the government know it either, do they? Right. I have heard that the London hospitals alone are using several 100,000 a day, but that's because the gowns, I'm talking gowns here, they're disposable. And my aim long term is to get a reusable gown up and running. And Hareesh has been really helpful on helping me kind of talk to the right textile manufacturers for this, because it is doable. There's already a textile firm in Nottinghamshire who makes the fabric for reusable gowns. There's one guy also in Nottinghamshire who's been making them for years but just supplying Europe. So long term, I mean, if we don't have plastic straws, why are we making loads of millions and millions of plastic gowns that are just burnt after an hour's use? Plus, why spend £5 CMT price getting it made in the UK for only wear it for an hour if you can wear a reusable one 100 times? So
yes. So one of the reasons also that we worked on this, as well as wanting to help in the way that Simon and Kiran and others have wanted to help with the issue, was also because we saw it as an opportunity to bring business back to the UK, which leads on to the next questions. But why are you as groups, I mean, it's obvious because we're here and we live here, but why are you all so impassioned about bringing production to the UK, manufacturing in bigger numbers? Kate, I'll start with you and then I'll go on to the rest. What is it about? Why are you Make It British, essentially? What's in it for you in emotionally?
I mean, it just makes so much sense. I mean, 10 years ago when I started Make It British, well, it was longer than that when I left my job in retail, it became apparent that we couldn't be so heavily reliant on countries such as China and put all of our eggs in that basket, which the PPE is a great example. If it hadn't all been procured from China, we wouldn't be in this mess. I'm never saying that everything needs to come back to the UK, because it won't. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, things like, you know, beautiful leather shoes made in Northampton, or, you know, Scottish cashmere, it makes sense because quality products that you can buy that are made here, that's what, you know, the UK excels at. So, you know, it's about making sure we still have the skills here. And the part of the reason I've been so sort of fiercely defending the UK manufacturers when it comes to the PPE is that I want to make sure these manufacturers stay in business so that when we come out of this, there's a great future for them. Because the feedback I'm getting at the moment, we have a live chat on the Make It British website, which is a great way of finding out what people that are visiting our site are asking for and looking for. And we have seen a 200% increase in the last few weeks of people saying, I want to buy more products that are made in the UK.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wearing Tatum Jones, that's made in the UK. And definitely now when I'm having conversations about what I'm going to choose to buy, because I think choice is going to, that's what I was talking about. I think choice, you know, I'm going to want to buy into the brand, into the culture, into the emotional relationship that I have with that company in a way that I don't think even I was. As someone has been in the sector my whole adult life. Hareesh, what is it for you with your company that I'm guessing, am I right, that you've come in to try to bring more of the manufacturing back to the UK as well as making it leaner internationally? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, Tamara. Now, for us, one of the key reasons for making our product in the UK is the time to market. So if we were to rely on manufacturing in Italy, we also source some of our shoe components, let's say from Spain or from Portugal. There are specialist lightweight soles that we'll be buying from other European countries. I cannot think of any component in our shoes coming from the Far East at the moment, which is great. But for us, making it in the UK gives us the opportunity to, one, eliminate buying in larger volumes. We can make the product at a very short lead time and then take it to the store. Two, by us making it in-house, we control the quality of the product right from the beginning all the way through to the customer. What it also does is it enhances the value we can transfer to our customer. So there's one particular line of business that we have. We call it the MTO, made to order. So a customer can walk into our store and have their feet measured, and we can make the shoe using the leather of their choice, with the sole, the color exactly to their specification. You know, to me, the kind of service that we can offer by making it all in-house in the UK. And again, you know, we cannot give that kind of value to our customer if our shoes are being made in high volume or components are coming from the Far East, where we are not in control of the supply chain.
And what's the price point on a shoe where you can have that kind of couture relationship with the design process?
So now that can depend. So with our MTOs, it starts somewhere in the region of £1,200 and above, and it can go as high as up to £6,000 based on the exotic materials, etc., that you choose. You know, but again, when we're looking at most of our customers who are ordering made to order, they're ordering it every year based on their wardrobe upgrades, etc., and they want their shoes to be matching all their clothes and accessories. Yeah.
And do you feel that, but also a shoe made like that lasts? How long and what's the general? So obviously, I'm going to generalize here, but I have a lot more shoes than my husband, right? I can't. I've tried to. I mean, it's very difficult to work out what's where around the flat we live in, but they are all boxed up with labels. How long do your shoes, worn by somebody that wears them 3-4 times a week, how long would they last?
Okay, so now again, our shoes we make right from rubber soles to you know, all leather soles.
Leather shows obviously a different length. Yeah.
Now, if I were to refer to our core product, which uses the heritage leather soles, now the way the shoes are constructed, we call them the Goodyear welted construction. And with the Goodyear welted construction, our shoes can be repaired multiple number of times. When I say multiple, we're talking 3, 4, 5 times. Okay, so we still, for example, in the last in the last few months, we've had shoes that were made in the 1960s come back for repair, which is phenomenal. And the good thing was we could go back into our archive, bring the last out, and we're like, okay, this was the technique, this was the sole, marry it all up. We even offered the customer to say, can we keep these shoes and sell you a new pair? And the customer was like, no, I want my shoes back. So we repaired the shoe and sent it back. And that's the beauty about our shoes, that you can have them repaired numerous number of times. As long as you look after the upper, and the upper is in a good shape, you know, we can keep replacing the soles for our customers time and time again.
It's the complete antidote to fast fashion, but it's also, to me, part of why Jermyn Street and Savile Row are so magical, because that's that really British dandy heritage, which I think you're drawing on. There are those very chic gentlemen that are walking around St James who are wearing the coat that they've had for 20 years and the hat that they've bought from Lock & Co 10 years ago and the shoes that they've bought whenever, maybe 50 years ago. But I think that's part of, perhaps that's also part of what I think the story of making in Britain needs to really hero. Simon, have you got any points on what's the relationship with your customer like? Because obviously there's a lot of volume there if you're exporting, but how are you explaining the kind of British identity or the Scottish identity to your customer, do you think, especially out of the UK?
I think customers around the world understand made in UK much better than we think, and probably much better than we do in the UK. And they get that association that we do. And we have for hundreds of years made the highest quality textile products in the world. And I don't think we really appreciate that and how much regard there is for our products. Scottish Cashmere is one example of them, but there's lots and lots of categories where we do lead the world. You know, and we talk about the Italian textile industry, and they learn all this stuff from us. You know, so I think there's a huge, it is probably more for me at the upper end that we've got that real advantage. We're never going to be the cheapest players in town. But
nor should we be either, because people have a standard of living that has to be, you know, and I think that's what we need to maybe put, not only what Jodie's just brought up about cost per wear, which I think is really valid, but also respect for those in the supply chain. If Kiran's on this call, because there's clearly transparency and fair wages, but if, you know, if you're not paying properly, then that means that the people making it aren't being paid properly. So it's, you know, it's also about respect for the value chain, which I think why people went abroad in the masses that they did was because the people in those alternative countries had obviously a lower cost of living based to us, but then as those countries have gotten more expensive to live in with the rise of middle class and become consumers, such as China, they've now shifted to other countries, and it's becoming this ever rotating. So if we go back to that, we stand firm on what we know we are, which is heritage, culture, and how would you say, great manufacturing and authenticity, then I hope that can bring people. Are you seeing that people are buying into it more and wanting to work with you more and collaborate with you?
Well, what we're told by buyers at the moment is this is where they see the market being resilient, that they see that the sort of the fast fashion, the disposable fashion is where they're going to be much more conservative, where they want to see where they expect their sales to hang up is on real high quality, good value, beautiful made products. That's what they want to be focusing on, and maybe lose some of the, you know, this season's latest thing that's going to disappear after a couple of months.
Thank you. We've had a question which actually relates to fashion shows, which also brings in the conversation about the rewiring I guess manifesto that's come through. So I'll just read this question, and if anyone's got some points, please either put it in the chat or our speakers can answer. So my overall thought is that this time represents our best chance at a future and not hitting a 2-degree rise. That would mean climate. If we as an industry go back to huge commercial fashion shows, fast fashion, unfair pay, unfair pay, I'm finding that very hard to say. You see, I can't even say it. Due diligence, I also can't say this week, which has been my phrase of the week. Our industry will be dead as we know it in 10 years, 2030. This is our chance. Either we make revolutionary changes or we're finished. Now, interestingly, what's interesting about everybody on this call is that none of you are primarily about shows. I know you do a presentation at Fashion Week with Johnstons, but it's not exactly a seasonal, you know,
no.
You know, have to, a jumper is effectively, obviously there's changes, but it's a jumper, and a scarf works as a scarf and a hat works as a hat. It's not like you're having to have a huge concept change, I would imagine.
Yeah, the reason why we do a presentation rather than runway show is it's about the beauty of the products, and it's about the quality and feeling it, and, you know, and examining it. So it's a different type of thing from a runway show. Do
you feel that you need to do those presentations at Fashion Week?
It started to change people's perceptions of what we are, so it's quite helpful from that side.
And comms messaging.
Yeah, it's about the press seeing what we do, but, you know, you could take our London Fashion Week show from a year ago or 2 years ago and you could put it into next year. It's not about something being of the moment, it's about showcasing beautiful products.
What I would like to see is a way that we can get the online relationship that social media allows, and community. I think what Fashion Revolution do with the Fashion Open Studios, who we had on a few weeks ago, is really interesting, where normally you can go to the studios, obviously that limits you to where you can go if you live out of big towns where a lot of designers and manufacturers are, but actually we did it virtually and it worked, but it builds relationships with those people. And I feel that is obviously very small scale, but it does allow for relationships to grow. Kate, what are your thoughts on fashion weeks and how it goes? She's muted. Unmute.
Well, but I think that UK made product, you know, lends itself very well to timeless. I mean, you know, Johnstons, Elgin, Church's shoes, a lot of the products that we make in the UK are timeless, and part of, you know, they're investment pieces. So it is about, you know, being able to feel the quality of the clothes. And like I said, I went to Simon's presentation this year, and it was amazing because
me too.
Being able to feel the cloth and the knitwear and see how beautiful it all was if it had been going up and down on a catwalk. So I think it does lead itself very well to the sort of products that we make in the UK. And, you know, we're also very good in the UK of doing the winter season much better than we are the summer as well.
Yeah, I mean, I worked as an editor, so I feel able to answer this question. And I can tell you that it was so boring having to go to hundreds of shows. And it sounds really jaded, because I did love my job. I did love it. Styling it's a fantastic job, but there are so few shows that give you that creative buzz in the way that I don't know, the early McQueen shows that I was lucky enough to go to, or the Hussein Chalayan shows, those really intensely theatrical, fabulous shows with well-designed clothes. Actually, one of the best shows I saw was during Men's, which was Charles Jeffrey Loverboy, who but he had Simon, his name's gone out of my head, the big sorry, I'm gonna have to look him up on my phone, but he had he had amazing sets, amazing. Sam at Night did the, you know, he had all the best people doing hair and makeup, so it became theatrical and it was really well done. But what's difficult, I think, and what this question is about waste. Now you're making your, which actually leads back to what we're all talking about, is how to make the business leaner, because the show, in a way, I know as a stylist, is the bit that you come to do the magic with the product, but a show also has inbuilt with it loads of waste. The travel, the set, all of it is based on a waste model. And you mentioned lean, Hareesh. Could you just explain that to the audience, because they might not be aware of what that is, Hareesh, if that's all right?
Okay, so in lean terms, what we are looking for is, we are looking for value from a customer's point of view. So there are what we call 7 deadly waste in any business, okay, and they're called Timwood. So the first one is excessive transportation. The second one is excessive inventory, excessive motion, excessive overproduction, overprocessing, TIMWOOD, and the final one is defects. So excess of any of this means you're not adding value to your end customer. And the whole idea of being lean is analyzing all these 7 deadly waste and eliminating them. So one of the things that we are doing at churches is analyzing every single process and asking our people the question, why are we doing this? Is our customer truly paying for this? Is this value for our customer? And if the answer is no, then we challenge ourselves. Why are we doing it? How can we do it differently? And what this starts to bring out is, it starts to then bring out key activities that we've done, right? And for example, hand cutting of leather, right? That's one thing that we can all relate to. And it's a skill in cutting the leather of the shoe out from the falls. Yes, it is one of the most easily automatable process, but we've chosen not to do that because we believe that the value that to our customer is that we cut the leather or the panels out of the leather for a shoe by hand. We get to carefully pick, you know, the leather that's going on to every single shoe.
So and that's built in. That's built into the price as well, because right, you're not the high street, you're churches, you're that handmade aspect, that creative process, that creative thinking that comes from an expert working with the fabric and feeling it and understanding it is built into the price, right? Which is built into the sense, which maintains its value as well, which is why someone can come back. I think I think what we're getting to is a sense that possibly the shows, the presentations such as Simon's done, which sound, you know, are also to build relationships with the press and build and create a new understanding which emboldens the next generation, is also part of how you communicate. I think that shows maybe not necessarily always that. I know that doesn't really cover the climate change aspect of it, but it does cover it in a way, because if a business isn't lean, then from start to finish, let alone by the time it's got to the show, it's definitely not helping the planet. Now, Aisha's question, which came on the chat, we didn't get that question through in time. If I think Kiran and Kate, if you could just go to that, it came on the chat. Kiran, can you see it?
Yeah, I've got something to.
So if Kate starts and then Kiran, if you could come in on that.
The problem is one that I hear a lot. People saying, I've contacted manufacturers and I want to make small quantities and they're not coming back to me, or you know, they won't take me on board. I think one of the things that you've asked there that particularly stands out is that you want to find a UK manufacturer that's fully factored. Really difficult to do that, because
What is
When
fully
you
factored?
Well,
in
no, when you have a fully factored manufacturer as opposed to a CMT one, you're asking them to basically pay for the costs up front of things like the fabric and the components and the.
Oh no! No one would do that. They would.
Well, they do for the bigger stores. So when I
Right.
worked at Marks and Spencer's, you know, a lot of stuff was bought fully factored, but you're working with, you know, big businesses who have the cash flow to do that. The majority of UK manufacturers, you know, especially those that are smaller, that can make the smaller quantities, don't have the cash flow or the admin and resources to do the fabric sourcing for you. I mean, it's part of the reason we have our Make It British live trade show, is so that people could come to that show and find the manufacturers that could do things like the sewing at the same time as the materials. I think what's happened, and I've noticed it in the last 30 or 40 years since I've been working in the industry, God, am I that old, that originally that is how it always worked. And all the factories, when I worked for Tammy Girl as a designer, everything, you know, we bought stuff CMT, all the factories were based in London, and we, you know, we sourced the fabric separately. We had someone at Tammy Girl who was just in charge of sourcing the fabrics. Everyone's got so used to working with China, where they have huge teams of admin people who will run around at your every bequest and find everything for you. And they can afford to do that when the wages are a lot lower. But back to lean again, I suppose. A lot of the UK manufacturers are operating on very lean businesses with very few admin people. And I know that's really harsh to hear when you're a startup. And it is one of the other reasons to overcome that I always say, you know, it needs a lot of investment if you've got to buy the fabric up front. Is to when you're starting.
She's saying she would buy the fabric, but she's not asking for them to pay.
When you start out, just keep things really small and simple. Do not try and be the next Prada or whatever and have a huge collection of every different type of product. The most successful businesses that I know recently that have launched brands made in the UK have started with just one signature product.
And what would be the names of those brands?
Like Hebtro Co, for instance, who have the trousers. They just made trousers to start with. They built a whole business up to £1 million selling pretty much just trousers. Other people that I know, what's the name of the lady that does she just does jumpsuits. I mean, she came to me and said, I just want a factory just to make a jumpsuit. I'm just going to make one style of jumpsuit in several different fabrics. Why can I not remember her name? It begins with an S.
No, I'm trying to get Rock the Jumpsuit to bring their manufacturing to the UK. And they said...
That's how it's most affordable for startups. Because
Seren, is it Seren, someone's saying?
No, it is Spry Workwear, Daisy Bridgewater. So it's just much more affordable to start out like that and keep it simple. And it also means it's much more lean because you're not making loads of different styles and samples and products, which half of your range no one's going to buy. So
no, I think that's good advice. Definitely, when I was working with designers on collections and shows, I'd be first of all asking who their woman was or who their customer was, and then try to navigate what that person needs, because I think by identifying those, then you can identify what is needed and what isn't needed, and you can cut out all the nonsense. And there were so many people that can't make a good trouser that can make a great dress as a designer, and they can't cut them, they don't understand them, they don't, you know, the fit isn't quite right on where it fits because it's too high. You know, I've seen it all. Kiran, have you got any answers for Aisha on that question?
Yes, so with our setup, because we are a consultancy to mass production, we're able to provide that. And just like what Kate said, there isn't many manufacturers like that. They do tend to be CMTs. And when these new startups are going to a CMT place, they're not getting that full facility there.
And
so,
what is CMT to the uninitiated?
Cut, make, trim. So basically cutting, producing, but no consultancy, no designing, no sourcing. And like Kate said, yes, it does. It takes up a lot of admin into it. But if that brand is strong enough and they know what they want, like we've said, it can work, but it's got to be with investment in it. So from our point of view, as a service, we are able to do that.
So it might be worth Aisha taking your email or vice versa, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I think that would be very useful if Aisha and Kate and Kiran, she's already got Kiran, she's saying that would be brilliant. I think that's really helpful as well. Also, that you offer a diversity of topics. Now, the rethinking fashion, I'm going to not answer because we haven't all read up on it, so that wouldn't be fair. But I think what we can close with before we end, because we've been nearly an hour and I appreciate everybody's time, is where do you all see it going? I mean, we've got the worry of the post-pandemic once we come out of this. I was on a meeting yesterday, as I said, and some of the guidance that we've had is that up to 50% of the high street could be gone, which is to me devastating, and I can't quite get my head round. So that we know that if we feel really passionately about a company or a brand, we do need to buy. Okay, I think that's a very clear message. But where would you like, how would you like us returning onshoring and returning brands to the UK? How would you like that, Kiran, to landscape for the next years ahead?
So with the companies we work for at the moment, we tend to, so they would have outsourced their first range collection out, and then their repeat range collection comes to us. When we're given our prices, unfortunately, they are higher because we use UK knitted fabrics. We're doing our full UK manufacturing. And when we're being compared to China, Bangladesh, on a price point of view, because they've already retailed it at X price, buyers just need to start thinking about the long-term wear of the garment. Fashion will always exist. That's going to happen, but we need to start educating our consumer on long-term wear of all clothing. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be at the luxury end. We need to be bringing it down to further down where the mass production is taking place. And then buyers also, their hands won't be tied, because as a consumer, they will know that this is what the price will be moving forward.
And do you see a difference with people buying online versus buying for retail, in bricks and mortar retail?
Yes, absolutely. Online, the smaller organisations online are understanding the sustainability of material. Just an example, I had a lady on the phone this morning who needed to put a vlog across about her particular brand. And we've mentioned this before, but her actual material that she uses is knitted in the UK, it's finished in the UK. And she actually only thought her product was. And I said, no, not at all. And as a smaller organisation and a fashion manufacturer, we are always compared to, well, this manufacturer sells it at this price. Why are you not doing it? But it's exactly the same material, and it isn't. And this is where we need to start educating, even sort of buyers as well, but our consumer. They are the ones who are going to be purchasing it and knowing what it has taken to produce, with the branding of made in UK, the branding of the fabric being sourced ethically. We've just got to start, especially in these last 8 to 9 weeks. I think that thought has embedded into everybody, regardless of what industry, career you are in.
I think it's, I did talk to Kate about a kind of a stamp approval that I thought would be a good thing for her to look at, and I know she's looking into it. And I think these stories are really important, aren't they? That perhaps people just think, well, you're making in the UK, so I've ticked that box, but actually you're sourcing from the UK, so of course that's built into the price. Kate, where would you like to see Make It British in the next 5 to 10?
I'm glad this is made in the UK rather than made in Britain. I'm almost, you know, the fact I'm called Make It British now, unfortunately, Britain, the word Britain, attracts some unsavoury types. I've since found out, hence, so I like the fact it's made in UK because it also includes our friends in Northern Ireland, which Britain technically doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah, I always say to people as well, just being made in the UK is not enough to sell and market and sell your products with. You need to have the whole story behind the label, and if that means it's, you know, it's showing where your manufacturing is, because anyone could put a made in UK label on it, but actually what is the story? Who are the people that are making your products? Who are the family businesses? You know, what is the provenance of the product?
Yeah, and I mean, that's been interesting for me coming into the conversations we've had inevitably about PPE, is meeting a lot of the manufacturers, and also when we had them into one of our all-party parliamentary group events about garment workers getting on the visa list last year. Yeah, and you came and spoke at that along with other people, and also the immigration minister, is that a lot of it is family run businesses, and you know, the hard work and the turnover is your family business. I come from a family business, so I can relate to that. Obviously your business, Hareesh, is going to be leaner. It's going to be all singing, all dancing. We're going to be wearing shoes from 40 years ago and getting them resold. But where would you like to see churches in the next 5 to 10?
So in the next 5 to 10 years, our focus is going to be first on developing and strengthening our skill base. At the moment, we have got an aged workforce in the manufacturing sector. I think that, you know, that's the same in textiles, is the same even in leather goods and shoes. So then our people skills is number one, followed by 2 is strengthening our brand portfolio by bringing all the products that we currently source from our parent company out in Italy to the UK. We bought the land next to our factory, which is the and tram depot, about 5 years ago, and we've not developed it. We want to build a brand new state-of-the-art factory, but obviously all of this needs to be out of our way. So that way we are able to lay our foundations firmly in Northampton. I know it's already there, but we want to kind of have it and bring it up to the 21st century with the key is protecting our craftsmanship, our people, talent, and techniques in the UK. So that's what I would like to see for the next, 4 to 5 years us doing.
And when you get just to generalize, people who work for the brand, I'm guessing they work. It's a career. They're working within the company for a while.
Yeah. So for example, in February, one of my key lasting is where you pull the leather over the toe. He retired and he just finished 50 years of service.
Amazing.
I've got one employee who is now at 50 years of service.
Amazing.
When did you guys start working? At some age, and they're still carrying on working, which is phenomenal. And to me, I've been in businesses where people work there for life. So I've got young apprentices and graduates, and I always tell them, look at these people, we can say that we can serve business for 50 years. I know I can't. When I look at our people in the shoe trade, I'm at the dedication and the commitment, and they see that as a job for life.
But that's also why it works on so many levels, because also it shows that the customer has bought into the brand for that long. It means that the provenance has lasted for that long and longer, actually, obviously, with churches, Northampton being this exemplar of the shoe manufacturing industry. I used to do the campaigns for Loke, so I used to go up there to do the campaign. So I learned a lot about it when I go up there for those. And also it just means that there's a pride in your work, because if someone's staying in a job, that's a very different relationship from, okay, I'm bored of this, I'm out in a year, or, I've learned what I need to do, I'm moving on.
Yeah. And just to add to that, speaking to the person who retired after 50 years of service, he says, I only joined in to be a carpenter, to be the carpenter of the business, but then he's as the lasting person, and we worked out a number of pairs of shoes he's touched over the 50 years. Do you want to guess?
How many?
Over 100 million pairs.
Wow.
Just nominal of the number of shoes that they've made. Obviously, volumes have come down from many years ago to where we are today. Churches were making a lot more shoes in them days to now. Just amazing. But we could not believe the numbers. As enough, we were like, wow. How many people can say that? It's phenomenal in terms of the value add that our people, contribute. Yeah,
it's fantastic. I think that's really exciting. I know that Jodie's going to want to get in contact with you because she's looking at apprentice schemes to support. So I hope that would be okay.
That's perfectly fine.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And then Simon, my first question actually, before we go to the long-term one, is going to be Moth related. Okay, and I hope it's okay. I really hope it's okay. but I have an amazing collection of clothes, Simon, and I bought into a product that apparently turned them off gay, that didn't work. I've used mothballs, I've got cedar wood, I've got the sticky things, and nothing's working. And they've just eaten their way into an Yves Saint Laurent jacket in this last week. And Simon, what can I do with my cashmere? What can I do? What do you do?
The first thing is, if it's knitted cashmere, we can repair moth holes, right? We'll take stuff back and we'll repair it, and we do that all the time.
What can we all do at home, though?
What can you all do at times? I mean, it's the usual thing. It's cedar wood. It's all the rest of the stuff to prevent it. It's putting it in the winter. It's where you get the biggest problems, putting it into bags. But it's getting a bigger problem because it's getting warmer. The winters are getting milder. We're getting more moths around. It is definitely getting much bigger. But yeah, if you've got knitwear, we can repair it for you. It's more difficult with woven fabrics to repair them and get you to the original state.
They've just gone into a 1970s Yves Saint Laurent jacket. You don't understand. I'm furious. They've eaten the Comme des Gardes. They've eaten everything. So for me, it was like, when I hope that wasn't off kilter for everybody. No, the freezer's tiny, darling. It won't work. I've done that. Yeah. They are a Romanian sheepskin waistcoat from the last century. I've had huge problems over the years, so I've tried everything.
There's no magic here.
There's no magic. You haven't got any Scottish magic going on. No?
Some of the chemicals that were used just a few years ago, we're not using anymore because, you know, our environmental standards don't allow it. So, you know,
my
it's actually getting more
difficult.
difficult.
Won't work. I know. Yeah. Okay, well, I thought you might have some insider tips, being the king of cashmere, but I will not be turning my heating off. I'm half Turkish. I'm always cold. That's not going to happen. But thanks for that idea, Kate. It's not going to happen. Okay, ambitions for the next 5 to 10 years in a moth-free world, please.
You know, I'd love to see us getting away from our dependence on throwaway fashion.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about luxury. I think, you know, Kiran made that point earlier. It's not about luxury. It's not about cashmere. It's about the whole industry weaning itself off. And we do have an opportunity now. You know, we're going to have fewer retailers. We're going to have fewer brands. Consumption is going to rebuild from quite a low level. And if we do it in the right way, we do have a really good opportunity now to do things the right way.
So how do we compete with those all singing, all dancing, little pretty things, boohooey, oh, I'm a bit addicted, oh, I feel a bit shit, oh, I'm just going to click yes, like, well, how are we going to compete with that?
Well, I think people need to understand what they're buying into when they buy that. You know, they're buying into suppliers who've basically now turned their back on suppliers in Bangladesh and left people in poverty and not paid for goods that they'd ordered and had shipped and applying discounts afterwards. They're buying into poor chemical controls, poor labor standards. You know, this is what they're paying for. And if they really understood that, then when they were buying that £5 dress, I think it would be a different thing. So it's about telling our story and telling it well, but also probably make people realize that the alternative is not just you're buying cheap fashion. It's actually you're buying into things that you don't really want to have in your wardrobe.
Yeah, I think we were on a call yesterday with Baroness Lola Young of Hornsey, who's the co-chair of one of the APPGs we work on, so the Ethics and Sustainability in Fashion. She told us on that call that she's had insights of already in Bangladesh, I think it was Bangladesh, of a girl who worked in a factory where they weren't paid, who was then sold by her family to a 40-year-old man. She was 14 and she committed suicide. And I feel that you're quite right, and it's a really good way to highlight the issue, Simon, is that if the largely millennial audience who are buying into the boohoo little pretty, because they're not selling to me, I really don't think they're aiming at me, but they might be, but I don't think they are, audience understood the consequences of that choice. These are the people who, you know, this is the generation that are hot on climate change, hot on authenticity, hot on values, but the values of fashion and textiles haven't quite cut through. So it's about how we highlight that transparency to them, so that, because once you know that, it makes you feel a bit sick. Me telling you makes me feel a bit ugh, you know. And I think if that relationship is the relationship you have with those brands and it's evidenced, I think it makes it much easier for people to stop going, oh, I feel a bit shit, that's going to make me feel better.
And a lot of those garments are going to the clothing bank at the end of their lives and the labels are still on.
Yeah.
you know, or
Yeah.
they've been won once or twice.
Yeah, there's that whole addiction thing, I think, is really that is another aspect that I know we've got to cover at some time. Alison, by the way, just to say, Kate, when you go to do your stamp of approval, is a fantastic IP expert who we had, I think, on one of our first webinars, and has spoken, and we were going to do an event before the lockdown with her, so definitely I can help you get her details, because she's a fantastic trademark lawyer. And thank you to everybody on the call. Thank you for all your tips on moths. I wish I had the capacity here to rotate, but I'm in a flat in a very nice area in North London, which means it's not large enough for a huge rotation of my clothes. But one day I would definitely, I think that would be great. But so far they've had the best taste going. We need you to do a webinar. I'd be very happy for that. And I want to say thank you to our speakers and also to Kate for coordinating. And for me, what's been really interesting about working with Kate is getting to meet the guys who work in the manufacturing and textile side, because as someone who came from the glossy bit, the shows, the magazines and the styling, I didn't always get to meet you guys, and that's been really a real honor.
Manufacturers are nicer.
Yeah, but really nice. You're all really nice.
All really nice.
You're all really nice. And thank you for all your work with us as well on trying to get the UK PPE production off the ground, because it's something I feel so important. So another Friday, and if you are on your Instagram, instead of buying clothes, my client, the one I've kept actually, my styling client, is doing her kitchen disco, Sophia Lispextra, at 6:30 on Instagram. I think it's week 7 of her and her kids in disco clothes dancing, but it's a bit of fun to round off. But thank you to everyone, and we'll be doing another one next week, next Friday, and no doubt I'll be speaking to you later, Kate. But thank you to Kiran, Simon, Harish, and
Thank
Kate.
you.
And Sarah for organising.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye.